Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Rhinebeck Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for August 19th, 2020. And before I get rolling here, I have an opening statement that I'd like to read into the record. And it goes as follows. I have confirmed with the ZBA Council that tonight's meeting has been convened in accordance with the Governor's executive order, which suspends certain provisions of the open meetings law to allow a municipal board to convene a meeting via video conferencing, and the Governor's executive order, which extends such suspension until September 4th of 2020. As such, there is no in-person meeting for the ZBA, and this meeting is being conducted via Zoom video conferencing. In accordance with these executive orders, the public has been provided with the ability to view tonight's public meeting via Zoom, or to watch a live stream of the meeting on the town's webpage. In further accordance with the executive order, a transcript will be made at a later date. This meeting's agenda has been duly noticed on the town's webpage, which notice was accompanied by information as to how to access and view this meeting. And with that, I'll call the meeting to order. And the first order of business, as always, is the review and approval of the prior meeting minutes from July 15th, 2020. I only had one small correction, which I told Chris about, and that concerned the Dunn application. It indicates that we continued the public hearing in Dunn, and actually we closed it, and I confirmed that with Chris. But does anybody else have any questions, concerns, or corrections with regard to the prior meeting minutes?
I had also provided some edits to Chris.
Right. Anything else? Okay. Hearing no corrections, comments, or concerns, I make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented, subject to that change on the closure of the public hearing on Dunn. With regard to the meeting minutes for July 15th, 2020. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And Kim, do you want us to do a roll call on that?
Yeah, just for everybody. I think we have two people on the phone here, so just so that
Okay.
they can have that too. Thank you.
So Scott Bergen, I am for approval of the meeting minutes. Tim Econopoli. Oh my gosh. I'll get it within a couple of years, Tim, I'll get your name right.
You got it. Just like Monopoly, but Econopoly.
Econopoli.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Catherine Clark.
Yes.
And Tim Allenbrook.
Yes.
And David Tobias.
Yes, sir.
All righty. We've got that done. All right. We have one new matter of business on this evening. And that concerns, let me just get this in the light. Case number 1000, which is the 12468 Corporation at 473-475 Mill Road. Is there someone here to present that application?
They probably would be on mute. Chris, who was is it?
Kyle Diamond from New
Oh.
Dimension Construction.
Okay. I know I saw you here.
Along with me, I'm Kyle Diamond. Along with me is the architect, Melissa Baker, and
Hi.
the landscape architect, Dale Schaefer.
Okay, Kyle, the way we run this, it's pretty informal. Basically, what we want to do, it's your first time on. We've reviewed the application. We'll probably have some questions about the application. If we feel that the application is complete enough to accept, we'll accept it, and we'll set a public hearing for September
16.
September 16th. So with that, if you could just briefly tell the board and the folks from the public what the application concerns.
Sure. So basically, I'll let Dale or Melissa weigh in as far as some of the technical reasons why we've located things in certain locations. But basically what it is you have an existing house that we're renovating currently. The garage formerly was in between essentially two structures. You had the main structure, you had a garage, and then you had sort of a guest area. So that former garage has been converted into living space for the family, and no longer having a separate, the separate entrance is essentially a two-family dwelling or accessory apartment in essence. So what we've done is what we've done here is tried to locate a new place, a new location for a two-car garage. And so that's what we're presenting to the board. And as you are all aware, there are two area variances that we're seeking. One for the sideline setback, as well as the secondary structure closer to the road than the primary structure.
And I see there's some, as part of the application, can you go through and expand the various pieces of demonstrative evidence that you have, just to show us, give us a better idea of where the structure is going to be in relationship to the property, a rendering of what it's going to look like, footprint and all that kind of stuff, which I think you've already submitted.
Sure, I think we've submitted all that. We have a site plan there that we've submitted. We've also submitted a plan showing that what property line it's next to.
Chris, I'm sorry, Kim, are you able to maybe pull that up?
Yeah.
Kyle, that may be the easiest thing, is for her to pull stuff up and then maybe
Yeah,
So-
can you-
comment.
okay.
Maybe Dale, you could help out because obviously everything's labeled here. Perhaps the landscape plans, L100.
This showing, sorry, I
Yeah.
always can't tell if it's showing. Did it pop up?
It's small.
No, yeah.
It hasn't.
It might be good to show the landscape plans, the illustrative plan, that might be easier to read.
Okay, I think I had that on there.
While we're waiting for this, is the area staked out so when we go out and do a site inspection, we can see where it's going to be?
Yes, the area has been staked by the surveyor.
Okay.
And we submitted the survey map. I apologize that it's not to scale. Bob is working on that, and before our next meeting, that survey map itself would be scalable.
Is the illustrative map showing?
No,
No.
No.
Oh,
nothing seems to be happening.
Okay, let me stop share.
There you go.
Hey.
Wonderful.
Operator malfunction, I apologize.
No problem.
So maybe what I'll do is I can walk through the plan, just kind of generally where things are, so you get a sense of the site. Just generally, this is the property line that on the north and the south of the drawing. All the kind of the light green is lawn, and you can see the topography. This house is the existing house, where it says a house, is sitting on a kind of a plateau or a mesa, surrounded by slope down to the creek. So what Kyle was describing, the original garage is sort of in the center of just above where it says house. And so that's becoming family living space. So the intent is the client wanted to have a landscape gardens in front of the house, and a place for parking that's pulled away from the house, and also a garage for two cars. So what you can see where it says garage toward the kind of center top of the plan. And great.
Oh,
And
that's
so-
great. That's better. Yeah, thank you.
And you'll see that there's a
Gotcha.
diagonal line that says the 75-foot setback line.
Mhm.
So the garage is within that setback line. So that's the one issue. The other issue is that the garage is also located in proud of the front of the house toward the road. And so the intent was we looked at various ways to kind of push the garage back toward the right, but trying to get the right kind of access to the garage and to have play areas for the kids and not have the garage behind the house. The garage, there was requested that the garage be placed in this location. And it's and the garage is pretty far from the road.
Yeah, I think it's maybe over 200 feet from the road.
Right.
Say that's accurate.
Yeah, I think I pulled up an image from Google Earth, which I can show, which just it's an image that's shown from the road, so you can kind of see what the driveway looks like. Hold on.
And Dale, it was considered swapping the basketball court with the garage, but that didn't work.
Yeah, it was getting access into the garage would require getting rid of all of the landscape in front of the house. The house is pretty far back on the property, so there's not much room behind the house.
Right. I was just thinking, you've got a basketball court that's obviously well paved or flat without landscaping, right?
Right.
But swapping that with the garage doesn't work.
Well, the garage, that would require the basketball court to be either right in front of the house or in front of the garage. And if it was in front of the garage, then you'd have to have the driveway access to the garage in front of the house.
Yeah, I think that's the main issue, that then the driveway ends up being right in front of the living spaces there. And just the way you would have to turn into the garage would be quite tight. And then we wouldn't be able to have as much landscaping between the driveway and the house. The driveway would kind of feel like it was on top of the living space.
Okay, now I get the landscaping issue.
We also considering the view from the road. I think there is a rendering that I submitted a little later on, an elevation rendering, and it's the garage. Having a view of the garage versus the basketball court, I think, would be much more attractive visually from the road as well.
Yeah, and this is a good photograph here where the garage actually, because of the natural woodland vegetation, is tucked behind. It would be actually to the right of the house in this view, so it would be very difficult to even see the garage.
Yeah, I think from this view.
It would be to the left, wouldn't it?
Right.
I mean left,
Right,
I'm sorry.
yeah, he meant left.
Dyslexic.
From this view, I don't think you would see the garage at all because of the way the trees are placed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Correct.
Would you like me to show the renderings that you had provided?
Could you?
I don't want to put Chris. Chris had gotten those just today, so
She sent them around and we have them. I just need to make sure I'm looking at the right ones.
it would be. Let's
The
see.
site plan renderings, I think. I got it. Hold on one second. Sorry.
No worries.
There you are.
There you go. Yep.
So that's the top view is the house before, with the large kind of mansard roof on the second story. And then the lower story is vertical siding that was very dark in color. So a lot of that we're keeping in the renovation, and we want to pick up on that idea with the garage to just have the garage kind of mimic the lower portion of the house and have it also be the vertical siding that's quite dark. And so it really blends in with the house.
Okay.
So do those smaller trees come out in the before image, or?
Yeah, those smaller trees, what you see in the top image, are come out. They're crab apples, and they're replaced by the larger trees you see in the lower image. What's kind of missing in this view also is there's a very large birch tree that's kind of we're going to be keeping, and it is sort of if you look at that first kind of white car and you come into the lawn, it would be in that roughly that location.
Yeah, it's just not shown because it would kind of block your view in the
Yeah,
rendering.
for the architecture, right.
So it's somewhat abstract, but yeah, it's a beautiful birch tree that we would keep, and actually would help to obscure the garage from this view.
But we should be able to get an idea of that when we go out and take a look around because of the staking and everything else.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And is the basketball court already in, or that's to be built as well?
That's to be built.
And the pool?
The pool is in to the right of the house in the rendering. You can kind of see the pool chairs that are there.
Right.
So that's where the pool would be located. And then behind that is a small pool house.
And Melissa, where's the septic and well from this view?
So the well is actually in front of the house, kind of in front of the chimney there. And the septic is actually in the back of the house.
I'll pull up the other plan again. That will help.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was one of the more difficulties of the site as well. The septic was in a location that made it very difficult to push anything too far to kind of
Behind the
behind the
house,
house.
yeah.
Behind the house.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, the only location that would kind of work based on the setbacks and the behind the house requirement is where the septic is. So kind of where it says lawn.
Right.
I believe that's where the septic is.
Yes.
That's the upper right-hand side as you're looking at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Septic tank is roughly where it says the proposed fire pit is.
That's the only place it could be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously, considering the possibility of expansion as well, we felt it necessary to leave as much of that lawn area as possible.
All right. Any other questions, concerns of the board members? For me, the application looks pretty complete. I'm glad it's staked out, so we'll have a good idea of where the garage is going to be or proposed to be when we go out there. But does any of my board members, do you have any other things you'd like to see in the application?
Can't think of anything.
I think it looks pretty complete.
Yeah. All right. I will make a motion. Well, I'm sorry.
One thing. We have engaged an engineer just to deal with some of the the details more for the planning board. But by the time we would have this next meeting, we'll probably have some feedback from the engineer as well.
Okay. Any information you can give us that will help us is appreciated.
Thank you.
But at this point in time, I think there's enough information before us that we can accept the application So I'd make a motion that we accept the application. And do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. And I'm a
Tim
yes.
Allenbrook.
Yeah, Tim Allenbrook.
And do a
Tim?
roll call.
Yeah,
Yes.
total roll call. Tim Allenbrook.
Yes.
Okay. Dave Tobias,
Yes, sir.
Catherine Clark,
Yes.
myself, obviously, yes. And Tim E. So I
Yes.
don't butcher your name some more.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that's passed. We have accepted the application. And so what will happen here is that we will set this up for a public hearing on September 16th, which is the next date. And before that, neighbors or whoever is affected by this will be notified, and they'll have an opportunity at the public hearing to voice their concerns, if any, questions, if any, and we may have some more questions as well. I understand, Kim, that this is basically being, the application is being considered simultaneously with the planning board, and they're
Yes,
taking the lead on the seeker.
Yes, they're doing a site, because it's, I believe, within 1,000 feet of in the LWRP, they have a site plan before the planning board. So the planning board will be taking lead on seeker, and I recommend that the ZBA follow suit as to what the planning board does for seeker.
Right. Yeah, I have no quarrel with that. Let them take the lead, and so we'll defer to their judgment on the seeker determination. 2 referrals have to be made, obviously, to the planning board as always, and the WAC.
Yep, again, it's in the LWRP zone, so it should also be referred to the WAC.
Okay. Who would like to volunteer to do the resolution of this case? Don't say yes at once.
I'll take it.
All right. All right. Kim, have I missed anything?
No, I think you're good.
Okay. All right. So we'll see you folks on the 16th of September. All right.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Be well and stay safe.
Thank you, you too.
All right. Next on the agenda is the Baptist home. And we continued the a public hearing based upon a neighbor's comments, some comments, I think, of the board members. There was an indication that we would like to see another rendering of the proposed sign with the top part of the sign being curved instead of having the right angles, and that was supplied, and maybe that can be shown. Oh, great.
I'm ahead of you guys today.
You're good. Can you? Oh, great. All right. Personally, I think it looks better than the original application. It does soften the sign. That's just my comment. By the way, is there anyone from the public who is here to comment on this application? Okay, and Mr. Roberts, are you here to? You are okay, and if you could just lead us through this again.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Scott, for having us back. So what we've done is based on the comments that we received from your board in mid-July, we rounded the top of the sign. And in doing so, of course, the sign got a little bit higher, but we did take the edges of the sign and we dropped the sign edges down a little bit to ease the increase of area. So right now we are seeking just one variance, which is for the sign area itself. The new sign area to accommodate the rounded top or the eased top is 14.8 square feet per side for 28.16 square feet total area. And then the difference between it and the zoning code allowed sign area, which is 8 square feet, we're seeking a variance of 20.16 square feet. And in doing so, when we made this adjustment to the sign area, it actually worked out where the necessity for the variance on the percentage of lettering was negated. And I want to just see if the ZBA agrees, but it looks like we will not need a variance for the percentage of letter area.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And but one concern I have, and I've had it, and maybe I should have voiced it more.
Scott, before you start deliberating, do you want to just make sure to open up the public hearing through
Okay.
a formal method, just to make sure? And
All right.
then,
Do you want a formal motion, Kim?
yes, please.
Okay. At this time, I'd open up the public hearing, which we continued from the last meeting in July. And I probably should have done that before Mr. Roberts gave his presentation.
Well,
So
it's actually fine for the applicant to give a presentation before the public hearing, just to make sure. So that's all fine.
And again, I'll just ask, is there anyone present who has, from the public, who has any comments or concerns about either the original plan or this new plan? Okay. Again, Mr. Roberts, I mean, I don't really have a quarrel with the top part of the sign. I think it looks okay, and the rounding actually to me looks better.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the concern I have, is that, you know, the bottom 4 boxes, I don't think a person's going to be able to see as they're driving by. I may be wrong, but it just seems that it's so small that.
Well, the main focus is the term community at Brookmead. And similar to the sign that is existing, the one which is the burgundy color, the individual building labels or building names is kind of a subsidiary of the main focus. So the main focus, of course, is to see the community at Brookmead, not necessarily seeing the words of each individual building's name as you're driving by.
Right, but and the sign that exists now, you can actually see the other buildings, the names of the other buildings better. My question to you is, does it make sense? And it would be less of a variance if you got rid of the 4 boxes at the bottom, which you can't see really anyway.
Right.
And to me, don't really, and this is just my, lay opinion.
Mm-hmm.
If you got rid of those 4 boxes and just, stressed what you have up top, you're going to have a smaller sign, so it's less of a variance. It's always easier for us to give less of a variance than more of a variance.
Mm-hmm.
And again, maybe I should have brought that up before and asked if you had if you could provide an alternate rendering without the stuff at the bottom and see how small you could get it, but still have the big Brookmead letters. And I think it's important to have the big Brookmead letters because you're off at 308, people are going by fast. They have to be able to see a sign.
Right. Though when the client's policy or what they're looking for is to have, when people do pull in, they do see recognition of the familiarity of the buildings that they come to visit by seeing them on the particular sign. So their graphic standards is trying to have this cohesive sign that does show the individual, let's call it a family of buildings that are there on campus, represented on this road sign. So I mean, right now, without talking with my client, their concept is to continue to show the family, if you will, of the buildings that are there on campus. I'm not quite sure that they'd be willing to give up eliminating that from the signage as it's shown.
I was just wondering, I'm sorry.
Robert, this is Karen. Can you hear me?
Oh, Karen, how are you?
Yes.
I'm good. Something that's important for us and for officials and for those that are visiting the campus is that they know the separate buildings that are on the property. For example, if the state's coming for the terraces or the inspector for Meadows, they wouldn't necessarily know it as Brookmead. It'll be listed under the legal name, and that's what they would be looking for. So usually we would tell them it's Meadows at Brookmead, but would be looking, and we listed the address there as well for emergencies, but also for the mailing addresses, so individuals have that.
Yeah, and the only thing I was, is there a better way to advertise those 4 buildings somewhere else on the campus? You know, they're going to get to Brookmead, they go down the driveway. You know,
It would be too late by then for the officials, but by then they're past it.
I mean, I do agree, and we talked about this a little bit last time, that as far as signage on a road like 308 that you're driving by, those bottom 4 squares are not legible. I understand why you want them there from a branding perspective, a legal perspective, all those other things. I totally understand those comments, but as signage, you can't read it driving by.
Right. And it's not meant so much for when you're driving on 308. When you're driving on 308 is you see the community of Brookmead, that brings you into the site. But by the time you've pulled into this area, you're about 25 to 30 feet off the road, and you're up adjacent to the sign. At that point, you're pretty much almost right on top of the sign, and the person coming into the campus would actually be able to read the individual buildings because they'd be almost right next to this sign.
But it seems to me then, and I mean, I'm familiar, I've been on the campus, but I didn't go look at it again after this, and I should have. But if that's the case and you're adjacent to the sign, then it seems like that's the perfect opportunity away from the road to have some directional individual signs that say, you know, this way to this part of the campus, this way to that, that actually give the driver a sense of where they're going, as opposed to like, oh, I turn in and now I'm going to look over and see there's 4 buildings here, but I still don't know where they are.
Mm-hmm.
When you drive into the campus, there is signage on the campus that indicates directions to the different buildings. We do feel that it is important that the distinction that it is the community of Brookmead, but the names of the different entities be on there. Again, people and families and folks that are visiting might be visiting a specific building, recognize the Brookmead name, and then realize that they are on that campus. So we do feel that that's important to be there.
It sounds like we all agree those 4 boxes would be illegible from 308. But it sounds like the goal is to have people, after they turn in, be able to turn to the right and confirm that these are the places they need to get to.
Correct.
So it's really and that helps us understand why it's, I guess, irrelevant that you can't read it from 308. There's just no way. But it's really serving you once you turn in.
Correct.
Right, and you'll be doing 10 miles an hour or 15 miles an hour or whatever. You'll be going slow and you'll be closer to it so it's visible.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully your passenger will read it to you.
I did the site visit, and me and my wife, we drove out, and I asked her, well, can you see what the 3 boxes that are there? Can you read those? And she could pick up one of them. And, you know, she wears glasses. She's got good eyesight. Well, with the glasses, she's got good eyesight. And then I noticed when I was coming back, I dropped her off and I came back and I figured, well, can I see it as a driver? Can I see it? And took my sunglasses off, looking, very hard to see. And I found myself actually drifting into the center lane, into the center of the road, trying to look at what was there. And my fear is that people are going to be slowing down because they're going to slow down, try to see what buildings are there, or they're going to be drifting over to the center lane or over to the side of the road, depending on which way they're going. especially with the smaller lettering that you're going to be putting up there. And then I drove into the site, and I do notice that you do have, inside the site, you have a, I don't know, was it like maybe a 4x6 sign inside that has the directionals of all the buildings. And so I just kind of look at that as a possible safety factor for people getting into an accident, trying to slow down to look at what buildings there are at this Brookmead campus.
Right, when you're still on 308.
When you're still on 308, right? Because what is it, 40 miles per hour there still?
Oh, I think it's 45.
45. So, I mean, it's almost like, my feeling is just get them off the road, Brookmead, and then have the directional signs on Brookmead Lane to kind of show them where to go.
That's an interesting point, Tim. I was all ready to sort of cede the day to the designer, and now you've raised a public safety issue.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they're already on, if they've already pulled into Brookmead campus and they see the sign and they proceed, there's other interior signs that will show them the direction to the individual buildings. But it does appear, though, that this one particular sign, when you do come in off of 308 and you're on the private drive of Brookmead Drive, you're pretty much right on top of the sign where you should be able to at least see the individual buildings, the names of the buildings that are on there.
Right, I think Tim's point goes to an earlier item raised by, I guess, your colleague, that there may be inspectors looking for, the terraces building, say, right, from 308, not realizing that they're all part of Brookmead, and kind of straying off to the middle of the road because they're looking to see what that says.
Right, you're slowing down so you can try to see on 308, which that's the safety issue, which is an interesting argument. I mean, everybody knows it's Brookmead.
Right.
It's just which building.
Right.
Well, but it's also people that might become visiting Brookmead that haven't been there. They're visiting, parents or whatever.
Right, but they know it's Brookmead.
They know it's Brookmead, right? When they see
Not
so once
necessarily. Sometimes the people are mailing things to an address or they're coming from out of town. A lot of times they'll know it's Brookmead, they'll pull in and they're able to read the sign and say, okay, this is where the other buildings are.
I don't know what the answer is. It's an interesting issue. There's good arguments on both sides, in my opinion.
And here,
I mean, when you pass a shopping mall, there's, I think, the signs up now, thank God there hasn't, not aware of any issues related to anybody attempting to read the sign to see what buildings are on there. But just general driver caution. I'm not sure how to comment on that.
Well, I guess again, and then getting back to my first thing is, if you took those 4 things off, you could reduce the size of the sign and make less, and it would be less of a variance, so it's less of a lift for us. And the rationale is that it's a non-compliant sign, and there's a move to try to reduce non-compliant signs. So if it's less non-compliant, it's an easier lift for us, I guess is what I'm getting at, to give the variance. The less variance we have to give, and that's one of the considerations when we do our resolution. So
yes, and just to remind the board, typically when you do area variance, you always discuss the 5-factor test. It's not really an additional factor, but additional consideration is if the variance requested is the minimum variance that's needed. I think, Scott, that's what you were.
yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Yep.
Yep.
Right. After you do the 5 factors, the next thing is the minimum variance required
to achieve the goals.
To achieve the goal.
if we look at it as the goal of showing those signs so that the inspectors or whoever comes to campus can at least have name recognition of the buildings, not so much directional and address identification, but just name recognition of, say, for instance, the meadows or the terraces. I think the sign right now is the minimum sign area that we can get away with in order to achieve the name recognition necessary for this particular campus.
But as the board said, the only problem is that I understand the name recognition, but if you're driving along 308, are you going to be able to see those name recognitions without turning in? Because it seems that you're saying that you need the names because if people don't know, but if they can't see, it doesn't seem like it quite accomplishes that.
Everybody knows Brookmead, so you're already in the campus, and then you got the directional signs which lead you to the buildings, I guess is.
Right.
They're still gonna find the buildings once, assuming those 4 boxes were not there. I think most folks would still find the buildings because you have the directional signs already.
Right. But the name recognition of the individual buildings isn't so much from 308. It's for after you've safely come off of 308 and almost driven to maybe 1 or 2 miles per hour as you're going by on this private drive, to look over and say, oh yes, there's the terraces, or there's the meadows. You can actually see it at that point when you're almost looking at the sign as these renderings are showing. These images of this rendering is actually taken from the private drive view, if you will. So this is as if you've already pulled 30 feet off of Route 308, and now you're on private property looking at, oh, yes, there's the building I want to go to, and then you continue on into the campus.
But aren't you at that point almost on top of the other directional signs?
No, they're farther in on the campus where the roads start to turn off.
I guess, I mean, and just logically, a person knows it's Brookmead and it's one of the 4 buildings at Brookmead. So if you don't have those 4 things, you continue down the driveway. That's what I think a normal person would do, and then the directional signs lead you, to which building.
In my opinion,
I mean, it certainly helps, I guess, but
I'm sorry.
I guess that you can achieve the same objective without them, I think, but. And then with a reduced sign size, it makes our job easier with less of a variance. But
I think it's confirmation of the buildings that are there. Like when you drive by any complex or, the building across the street, it'll list the different businesses that are within that building or that campus. And it's confirmation to those that are coming or that are from out of town or may not know that their loved one or whatever they're doing is in one of those buildings on the Brookmead campus. I'm looking at the sign. Perhaps if we remove the addresses, then the words could be bigger. That's something we would explore. But
I think that would be constructive.
Yes, I love that idea.
Maybe we could just put because they're all different addresses. So what I possibly could do is look at adding the addresses on the internal campus. And that'll make the building names on the main sign a little larger.
would they be comparable, do you think? And I know it's an assumption to the, what's currently present, which is more legible. I mean, you can see that better.
Right.
I think they'd have to probably give up maybe a point size or something. That's not exactly probably relevant at the size sign, but give up a tiny bit of the Brookmead size to make the lettering comparable on the other 4 buildings. But at least that would then begin to feel like there was a good rationale for them to be there if they were really legible.
And Patrick, why are there 4 now, but 3? I'm sorry, 3 now, but 4 proposed? Is there a new building put in, or?
Yes, last year, well, actually concluding this year is the final touches on a building that went through the planning board back in 2015 through 2016. It's the Adult Day Center.
Thanks.
Now, if we did increase the lettering size, the calculation of the actual
Oh, yeah.
lettering is the rectangle itself. So with that being the, let's say the variance we're seeking, if we kept the lettering within that box, could we still proceed with the variances as they're presented to say, all right, as long as the lettering fits within that box, they can proceed with this approval, or we can still seek this approval.
Kim, can you blow that up a little bit so we could just see the new sign?
The top, the new
Yeah.
sign?
Yeah. Ah, thank you.
Right, so you just get rid of the addresses and you can probably make those four things that size or I mean, bigger, I mean, is really what we want.
Right.
So you can see them.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of wiggle room there.
No,
But it's an improvement.
On that same sheet, in the lower right corner, there's a black and white drawing. Could I ask that you go to that for a second?
This one?
Yeah, all the way down at the bottom of the sheet.
Oh, bottom of the sheet.
Yeah, bottom right.
Oh, I see. Hold on, let me move this over.
That one right there?
Yep.
This.
Yep. So right there, that is actually a graphic representation of what the sign area is that we have calculated. So you can see that if we increased the lettering of those buildings to a little bit larger, got rid of if they got rid of the addresses, the shaded area is the area of lettering that is in the calculation. So I gather as long as we're within that area.
Yeah, you wouldn't need the second variance then, as long as you could stay.
Would there be any advantage to once you eliminate the addresses, you could possibly have one line of text for the meadows, Arbor Ridge, terraces, and the pavilion, and then you might slip a few inches off the top of the sign to go towards the town planning.
Hmm. Kim, could you go back to the existing sign for just a minute? What's the name of the fourth building?
The fourth building is the pavilion.
The pavilion. And Tim, you were wondering if they could just manage to increase the size, but have all of them on one line?
I don't think you'd be able to increase the size of the text. I think
Yeah.
But you wouldn't. Well, you might be able to shorten the sign a little bit.
Yeah.
what's the difference in the size of the lettering of the 3 on the current sign versus the 4 that you're proposing?
Oh, let's see, I don't know if I have the existing one measured.
It's actually quite a difference.
I mean, there is a big difference, and I'm just wondering if there's some way, if you can take a little off the top and you can increase the bottom and get the lettering bigger and just have the names of the buildings and, scrap the the address.
Would there be an issue with 911 not having addresses out at the road?
Hmm.
That's another consideration we might need.
Well, I
just
don't-
thinking out
I
loud.
don't see any, where are the addresses on, like,
It's
I
not a-
I see it says the names. I don't even see, like, even on these ones, it's
It doesn't have it on the, it doesn't have it on the
Not on the
current one,
existing.
the address, and
Oh, no, it
those
doesn't.
those addresses as rendered on that sign are not sufficient for 911.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have to have something else out by the highway.
Well, you got to have a number.
Yeah, we do.
Certain size number.
Hmm.
I know it seems like we're giving you a hard time, and we don't mean to, but I think there are legitimate arguments on both sides, and I'm just wondering if it makes sense to ask you for another rendering along the lines we're suggesting,
Mhm.
to try to reduce the size of the variance, maybe increase the size of the 4 structure names, and get rid of the rest of it. I think you know what we're looking at.
So Scott, it's that we're kind of honing in on 2 priorities from our standpoint. One is to decrease the size of the variance,
Right.
and the other is legibility. If all that content is required, then it needs to be legible.
The community is Brookmead. The names of the buildings, I mean, they're separate entities. They're part of the campus named Brookmead. I mean, we could definitely, Patrick, with help and redesigning it, but to eliminate the names and call the whole campus just Brookmead doesn't capture. It's like going to a building not knowing what's inside, or going to a campus and not knowing which way you're going.
And we understand that argument, and that's why we're saying you have the big Brookmead thing, so they see that, and hopefully you can increase the size of the names of the buildings similar to what you currently have, so that you can see it from the roadway. You don't have any concerns about people, on 308 trying to strain to see, what's there.
I think that, I mean, just practically, and I'm not trying to throw wrenches in this direction because I think it's a good direction, but I think it's going to be difficult for them to both increase the size of that lettering so it's legible from 308 and reduce the size of the variance needed.
Yep, true. Any thoughts from my board members? Kimberly, as to how we proceed from here? I mean, one thing we can do is we can ask for, try again for an alternate design, continue the public hearing. I know you want to get the sign up, but we want to get it right. And there has been significant input from the planning board, also a neighbor. So, people are concerned about this. And there is an overarching policy that, they want signs reduced that are not compliant. And that's what we're struggling with.
And I think the other issue that the planning board had raised as well was that the sign that is existing is already non-compliant, and this is increasing that non-conformity. That was one of the planning board's concerns, and I believe that was another one of a member of the public who had submitted a comment as well.
Let me ask a question about the existing sign. Is it possible to put 2 buildings on one line? In other words, you'd have the first building, comma, the second building, next line down, you'd have the third building, comma, the fourth building?
Instead of having the at Brookmead.
Instead of stacking them on top of each other, just kind of list them horizontally. So it would be
without the addresses.
Yeah, without the addresses. The addresses, I mean, like we said, it's for 911. That's not going to be sufficient anyway.
And you have the directional signs later on to get you to where you need to go.
Where you're going.
It sounds like you might be willing to consider, let's say, for instance, we see how we have the double stacked, they're 4-inch high rectangles.
Yep.
And if we just had along the bottom, meadows, the terraces, Arbor Ridge, the pavilion, all in one line, maybe with a dot or something between each one of those to represent each separate and distinct building on campus.
You might be able to almost keep it to the same size that you have there now.
Yeah, right. And maybe could the lettering could be a little bit taller in that one rectangle, but there's a possibility that we eliminate 4 inches in height by taking that top horizontal rectangle off.
Right.
Currently where it says Meadows and Arbor Ridge. I mean, Karen, if you're still listening, would that be something you'd be considering? That sounds like what the board is looking at doing, but it would certainly eliminate the addresses.
Yeah, we have to go back to the designer and describe all of that. Of course, we want to be compliant and take into consideration all of that. Understanding that we want the campus to be known and then the entities that are on there. So if we can incorporate it so that all those needs are met, we'll absolutely give it a shot.
Okay.
Let's give it a shot. I mean, we want to help you folks, but we have certain constraints that we're working with.
I was just looking there, just nominally, if we took 4 inches times 66 inches, that equates to what? What do we got here? That would be how many square feet we would take off if we took off that 4-inch ribbon.
Anything you can do
Okay.
to make the sign at least the size of what is presently there, and even smaller would be better. But the less variance we have to give, the easier it is. And then if we're able to get the legibility issue, that would be wonderful as well.
Okay.
Maybe it's an impossibility, but I think I'd like to see you take a stab at it, and I think my board members would like that as well, but I'll let them speak for themselves.
Is there anything else we should take into consideration so we can capture everything as best possible before next meeting?
I would make one suggestion is I did notice that the hedges is blocking some of your signs now. That, you know, you're kind of giving, I mean, it's not that much space, but you are giving up some space on that just by where the hedge is growing. And that's on both sides of it.
Yeah, we need to clean that up.
Yeah,
And
that's easy enough.
And Karen, you said
Yes.
that you need to have it's imperative for your board to have the buildings listed, because I think that would, my only suggestion is that the board has kind of stated that, you know, just having community of Brookmead would drastically help, but your position and your board's position is that you need to have the individual buildings. There's no way that you could just have the buildings directionally inside, correct?
Yes, ma'am. There's about over 200 residents, and they all have families and visitors, and over 200 employees. And it's one of the largest employers and businesses in our area. So there's a lot of traffic that come and go there, and they might see Brookmead, but if they're getting hired for Arbridge, for example, and they're driving, they pull in there and then they see the different entities. It just is a confirmation of what's on that campus. The umbrella name is Brookmead, yes, but the buildings are all separate operations.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I think that if you have to have the building names on there, that as Scott and the other board members mentioned, probably working on the legibility
Okay.
will be important.
And the reduction in the variance requested, if you
Yes.
can do that.
I wonder if the color
Okay.
green makes it difficult. I mean, we can explore that as well. So maybe Patrick, if we just talk to Timely and get a couple of options.
Okay.
Karen?
Yes.
Let me just ask a quick question. We brought this up before, but we didn't press on it. But if we're really pressing on every square inch of smaller that we can get,
The umbrella?
yep, how important is that umbrella?
It's 150 years of history. That's why it's the Baptist
It
home
managed
name-
to be missing from the current sign and,
Yes.
and,
So
and not erase that history, but
the Baptist home name has been changed to Meadows, just to meet the needs of the current population and make sure that everyone feels included. With that being said, the umbrella is the logo from the beginning, and that was one thing that's left that we're holding on to, that represents that entire heritage of the 150 years. The original founder of the Baptist home was an umbrella maker, and the other partner was a contractor. And the contractor had the money, and the umbrella maker had the idea. And they got together and they created the Baptist Home of Brooklyn back in the 1800s. And then in the mid 1970s, they learned that the neighborhood was getting rough. So they said, let's buy this plot of land up in the country, Rhinebeck. So they bought the 75 acres and came up on a big bus, and the residents were wearing big hats and coming off this bus with their canes and walked into the Baptist home. So that's just a little bit of the history, and that's why that umbrella is so important, because that's where it all started for us. And it wasn't on the original one, it was on the Baptist home, but that name has since changed.
okay.
I hope that helps a little bit.
It helps. It's just,
Give us a chance to play with it a little bit more to see how we can disguise it and move it, not disguise it, but move it so that we're able to somehow meet the
I mean, you don't, if it has that kind of importance, you don't want to make it so small that it looks like it's a mistake that somebody left this blob there, but it makes it harder to reduce the space and therefore reduce the variance. So Scott, I'll let this one go. Sorry.
No, thank you for understanding.
No, that's a very good point, Catherine. All right, Karen and Patrick, I thank you for your patience. We're not trying to give you a hard time. We're just wrestling with, kind of competing issues here. And I think the best thing, I would recommend that we continue the public hearing, give you folks an opportunity to give us some other ideas. Again, where we want to go, lower variance, bigger letters, and see what you can do.
Yeah, I think we have a couple of good ideas, and tossing these back and forth with you and the board, I think we have some good ideas on how to achieve your goals as well as my clients. So.
Great. Okay. So I'll make a motion that we continue the public hearing until September 16th, 2020. Do I have a second?
Aye.
Okay. And we'll do the roll call. Tim? Alan Brook?
Yes.
Okay. Tim Econopoly. I'll never get it right, Tim. Error. And I used to call your nephew at swim meets all the time, too. I don't know how I did that. Dave Tobias?
Yes.
Okay, me, yes. And who did I? Oh, Catherine.
Yes.
All right. Okay, good luck, Patrick, and good luck, Karen. And hopefully we get some plans that we can work with and deal with next time, okay?
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time and your patience.
And Patrick, if you could also, get us a revised draft, get the ZBA a revised design, a week or two before the next meeting, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, just like this one, I would probably have this turned around in time for the deadline of the next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Next matter on is Patel. Mr. Stone, you're here. Anyone else here for that application?
Yes, Joe Castelline, attorney for Garden Homes. I apologize, I'm away this week. I'm calling in on my cell phone, so I'm not zooming in.
Okay, that's okay. All right, we gave the parties an opportunity to submit additional information to us, which was done in a timely fashion. Thank you very much. I think from my perspective, I think we have a good idea of what the arguments are. But by the way, is there anybody else here on the application other than you two folks? Anybody from the public? What I would like to do, if you folks, for example, Mr. Stone, if you want to make a brief summary to us, that's great.
And then Scott, you'll formally open the public hearing.
Yeah.
Just as with the last application.
So I might as well do it right now. I'll make a motion that we open the continuation of the public hearing from the July public hearing.
Second, if you need a second.
Yeah.
I do need a second. And then we'll go through the, I guess, the roll call again. And Dave?
Yes.
Tim A?
Yes.
Tim E? Catherine?
Yeah.
Yes.
Timmy's
yes.
on mute.
Yeah, Tim, you're on mute.
Yes.
Mr. Stone, okay, so Mr. Stone, would you like to be heard briefly? Because I think we have a pretty good idea of what your arguments are. And
Right. I think we've presented comprehensive arguments, I guess, on both sides. We think it's manifest that the project by Garden Homes is subject to town oversight, is subject to permitting and town oversight in a number of areas due to its excavation of over 20 truckloads of material, most of it from my client's property, from demolishing a building, from working in the wetlands, from a multitude of reasons. It really requires town oversight. And we've been unable to get any traction on that. There was apparently some deal made in the summer of 19. We brought the construction to the attention of the zoning administrator. She issued a stop work order on the spot, and then was told later, no, there'll be no stop work order. We asked the board in May to put a stop to the work for an emergency session, and we didn't hear anything back from the board. The construction work goes on, and it's quite evident that they're trying to run out the clock. They're trying to keep doing the work without requisite oversight and without requisite permitting, and hoping to get it done before the town catches up to Garden Homes. We respectfully ask that you look at the code, that common sense and the plain meaning of the code mandates that there be some kind of town oversight of this project. I would submit to all the board members, you would not allow this to occur next to your property, what's going on this site, okay? And for those reasons, we respectfully ask that you overrule the finding of the zoning administrator.
thank you. Mr. Castellone, would you like to be heard?
Yes, thank you. I think we need to put this into context. There was a lawsuit between two parties. Mr. Patel sued and said the system wasn't working properly, it was operating on his land. Because of the lawsuit, we had to repair the system. Components of the system were on Mr. Patel's property. We had to repair the system to remove those components. That included digging out some land that we had a court permission to do. We had to put in a retaining wall. We had to do that. But at the end of the day, this is something that Mr. Patel is complaining about. I understand he's a neighboring property owner. He would dispute. We would say if you went out to look at this property, it's mostly wetland. There's nothing here that Mr. Patel is complaining that's actually negatively impacting his property. He's just asking the board to oversee it. Mr. Stone just said there was some deal put together. There was no deal. The zoning administrator issues a stop work order. It's common for people to reach out and say, oh, we've received a work order. We'd like to, or a stop work order. We'd like to talk to you about it and try to resolve it. That's what happened. There's oversight with the DOH. There's oversight with the DEC. This is something that there's no harm going on to Mr. Patel's property. The system is being repaired pursuant to a lawsuit that Mr. Patel said, get the dirt off my property, stop the encroachment, stop the discharge. Otherwise, the system was working properly. We're now repairing the system so it works properly according to the judgment from the court. And that's what we're doing under DOH oversight with DOT is involved and DEC. We would say this is repair work that the zoning administrator determined was proper. There was no deal. I don't know what that's implying other than we had conversations saying, hey, this is what the code is. This is what the work is. Mr. Patel's complaint wasn't founded and the zoning administrator agreed. So we would say there's no issue here. There's no harm to Mr. Patel going on other than he doesn't like the work. He doesn't like the view, which he's entitled to have that viewpoint, but that doesn't mean there's something improper going on. It doesn't mean there's something the zoning administrator decided that was wrong. So we would ask that the zoning administrator decision be affirmed.
Thank you.
May I briefly?
Sure.
Rebut that. The board should be well aware of the myth that this is a repair to the system. This is a $275,000 project, an overhaul project. They're building a wall on the boundary line of the properties. They're doing it in a way that was never represented to the court. So it's not an issue of no harm to Mr. Patel's property. Yes, he wants them to stop doing what they're doing. And it took us 12 years and 2 trips to the appellate division to get them to stop doing it. We want them to do it in a legal and responsible manner. That is the key to this. It's not whether or not there's no harm. It's whether or not they're complying with the law. That's the question here. Not that, hey, golly gee, I did something, and because you can't complain about it, Mr. Patel, there's no cause here. There's no reason for the town to be involved. They're going ahead and doing this at their own pace, doing whatever they want. They can't co-opt oversight out to the DOH or out to other agencies. If the town has responsibility, it has responsibility. End of story.
Thank you. A brief 10-second response, if I could.
Okay, that's it.
The zoning. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
No. You got your 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Thank you. The zoning administrator oversaw this. She went out there and looked and said, "Okay, I see it." She talked with me. She saw the plans. There's no harm to Mr. Patel's property. The wall was being put in there. The dirt was being dug out pursuant to Mr. Patel's request. And now he's demanding that there be all these different permits. We're not in the wetlands. We're in the wetland buffer. Different things, different issues. There's no impact going on. This is a previously developed property. There's a system. The main system component is not being altered. It's the side issues that are being dealt with pursuant to Mr. Patel's request. And so we would say the zoning administrator reviewed it. She made a determination. It's consistent with the judge's order about getting things off Mr. Patel's property and moving on. There's no harm to Mr. Patel's property, nothing. So the fact that he's complaining, and I understand he wants oversight, fine. We have DOH oversight. We have DEC oversight. We're dealing with it. We would say the zoning administrator made a proper determination, and that's it.
That's quite a 10 seconds, Mr. Castiglione.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm trying to have a little levity with a very serious problem here. So anyway.
No, I understand.
Gentlemen, I appreciate, first of all, I appreciate you timely briefing these matters. Everybody was on time, and that's great, and you supplied us with a lot of information. We know your arguments, and at this point in time, I'd make a motion that we close the public hearing. And then, assuming that is approved, we have 62 days to render a decision. So do I have a second on closing the public hearing?
Second.
Okay.
Tim,
Dave?
you're
Okay.
on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim, you're on mute. Okay. And then I'll do the roll call. Tim Econopoli.
Ooh.
I did it.
That was good.
I know.
Yes.
All right. Catherine.
Yes.
Tim Allenbrook,
Yes.
Dave Tobias.
Dave's on mute.
I seconded it.
Oh, you second it, okay. So you're a yes, I'm a yes. The public hearing is closed, and you'll have a decision within 62 days. Thank you very much for all
Thank you, everyone.
and your arguments and your civility, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank
One
you.
other issue, and I want to bring it up while you two gentlemen are still here, I think, is we are going to need our counsel to assist us on this. On matters like the interpretations, we do have our counsel assist us, and I think at some point in time, Kim, I would ask that you and John give us your analysis of the arguments made by the litigants here, and supply it to the board for our consideration, so that hopefully we can discuss it at the next meeting, and discuss where we're going to go on the determination. The only other thing I have, and again, I'm glad you two gentlemen are still on the line, is that we do have 62 days, and I do not know if we deliberate at the next meeting and we have a resolution for the meeting after that, whether we run afoul of the 62 days. And Kim,
I think we would miss it by 1 day, as always is the case.
Do you gentlemen have a quarrel with extending our time frame for 1 day?
Due to the urgency of the matter, I would urge the board to decide in much less than 62 days. That's all I can say. I really think this is dragged on for a long time, and it's a fairly straightforward look at the code, whether it's a repair or not. I mean, I don't know what to say, sir.
I think what I will say to you, Mr. Stone, is I appreciate where you're coming from, but you also have to appreciate that you basically have lay people. And even though I'm an attorney, I'm a personal injury lawyer. I deal with broken bones and things like that. And I don't think it's as simple a case as somebody who is an expert in this like you are. It is not as simple for us. You deal with this. This is what you do. And so we really do need to have the input from our counsel. That's why we have them, because they assist us in hopefully making the right decision. So with that again.
And Scott, if I might also just add, Grant and Lyons will be briefing the legal issues that have been presented by both sides for the boards. We will get that to you before the next meeting. But we would need your deliberations, obviously, in the open meetings. And we need your deliberations so that Grant and Lyons can draft a resolution based on the board's decisions and deliberations. So we wouldn't be able to draft that resolution or have it prepared for the next meeting without the board's direction.
Garden Homes has no problem with it, so we're fine. We understand. It's a different world nowadays.
If it's 1 day, Chairman, I'll agree to the 1 day.
It's just 1 day.
I can't fathom, what. But by the time this gets decided, I mean, the horse is already out of the barn door. So I mean, I really, I don't even see what's going to productively happen from this if it gets kicked. The can keeps getting kicked down the road. So.
Again, there's a process. We have to do this correctly. I mean, we want to understand this. We want to try to get it right. And it does take time. And we're all volunteers, by the way. We're doing the best we can. So the 1 day would be much appreciated. We run into this all the time. We're always 1 day off.
And the 1 day is just so that we can have it at our regularly scheduled meeting.
And read the resolution at the regular scheduled meeting.
That can't be issued by mail?
No.
After you deliberate next time?
No, because they need to take a vote, and that needs to be done at an open forum.
Again, the 1 day is not an issue in the context of this entire case, but I would just submit that the delay just works against my client.
I understand. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. I know I could beat you down. Thank you. No, I really appreciate it. It makes it easier for us to do our job correctly. So I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that's it for the public hearings. Next, we have old business. And Kim, it looks like we have Hudson Valley Rhinebeck. Was that continued into September?
I was well, I believe that the last correspondence we had from Mr. Rodenhausen's firm was that they were going to do it for tonight, or I guess 2 letters ago. They were supposed to be on for tonight's meeting as a public hearing. And I believe their latest letter, and Chris can correct me, just asked for an indefinite adjournment.
Yes.
So they've asked they were supposed to be on for tonight's meeting as a public
Okay.
hearing. They've now asked for an indefinite adjournment. It's up to the board. We have been, I believe, I know that they've been doing some water testing. I believe that's what the issue is, and they're working on it. I guess I don't know if they're just waiting for the results. I'm not familiar as to what is exactly going on. I will just say that when they do come back, because we don't have a definite time to put it off to, the applicants will need to renotice once they want to come back for a public hearing.
Well, I'm sure they're aware of that. There's been no secret determination from the planning board, I assume.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's my understanding, at least.
Right, and I assume that requires a motion? Or do we just agree that it can be adjourned indefinitely?
I would just
Motion's
say
probably not a bad idea.
it's not a bad idea. Yeah, you can just say
Okay.
that the extension is granted, and
Right.
the applicant will be responsible for contacting us.
Okay. And all right, so it's my understanding that the applicant, Rockledge, has made an application for an indefinite extension. Isn't it indefinite extension of the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay. And they understand that by granting this, assuming we grant it, which I presume we will, that they're going to have to renotice and go through the hoops again. Is that correct? I mean, I'm sure George knows that.
Yes, we can always, I don't know if Chris if you normally let the applicants know that their extension has been granted, but if you wouldn't mind just tomorrow, assuming it's granted, just let them know that the extension was granted, and that they'll need to renotice once they're ready.
And Chris, if you have some concerns about the language, maybe just run it by Kim.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
No problem.
So I will make that motion that we grant the application of Rockledge for an indefinite extension or of keeping open the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. And I'll take a roll call. And Tim Econopoli. Did I do it twice?
Show off.
I am.
You need to unmute though, Tim.
You gotta mute.
Yes.
All right. Tim Allenbrook,
Yes.
Dave Tobias,
Yes.
and Catherine Clark.
Yes.
And of course, me, yes. All right. So yeah, Chris, if you could just draft something and then maybe run it by Kim real quick on that issue.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Next is, I think it's Fox. Dave, I think you're up.
Okay. So we have a resolution to read. And it
Yes.
goes something like this. Resolution of the Town of Rhinebeck Zoning Board of Appeals in the matter of the area variance application of Robert and Gloria Fox, ZBA case number 997. Whereas, background applicant, the applicants are Robert and Gloria Fox, referred to hereafter as the applicant. The applicant is represented before this board as Christina Ducharme with the firm Christina Ducharme Architecture, PLLC. This appeal involves property located at 232 Morton Road in the town of Rhinebeck, bearing tax parcel number 135-089-606900476156. The property is 5.06 areas in acres. I'm sorry, 5.06 acres in area and is located in the HP 20 zoning district. Description of the project. The applicant proposes to renovate a one-story detached guest house, replacing an existing carport overhang with a smaller entry pergola and adding a second-story studio apartment above with storage and a renovated bathroom below. The overall footprint of the enclosed structure remaining the same. Pursuant to section 125-27A4 of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law, total aggregate area for all accessory structures shall not exceed 1,500 square feet or 300 square feet per acre in the HP 20 zoning district, whichever is less restrictive. Since the subject property is 5.06 acres, total aggregate area for all accessory structures shall not exceed 1,518 square feet. The proposal involves 1,665 square feet, which would require a variance of 147 square feet. Timeliness of appeal. The applicant filed an appeal with this board on February 27, 2020 and has paid the requisite fee. The appeal was filed within 60 days of the date of the zoning enforcement officer's decision, dated January 16, 2020. And thus the application is timely as required by section 125-125B of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law. This application was deemed complete, subject to receiving renderings from the applicant and accepted by this board on June 17, 2020. The renderings were provided to this board on July 14, 2020. SECRA, the planning board as lead agency, has conducted a SECRA review for this proposed project. The planning board classified this matter as a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, and completed their review. We accept the planning board's classification. No further review is required pursuant to SECRA. Referrals. The application was referred to the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, the Town of Rhinebeck Conservation Advisory Board, and the Waterfront Advisory Committee on July 16, 2020. The latter two boards responded in writing to the ZBA referral and undated memo received on or about July 28, 2020, acknowledging that the project is within the local waterfront revitalization area and contains federal and New York State DEC designated wetlands, but, quote, will not have significant impact, unquote. Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board responded on July 23, 2020 with no significant planning or environmental concerns, unquote. Public hearing. A public hearing on this appeal was duly advertised and held at Town Hall on July 15, 2020. During the course of the public hearing, no comments were received regarding this appeal. The public hearing was closed on July 15, 2020. Excuse me, site visit. On July 13, 2020, ZBA members Catherine Clark, Scott Bergen, and Dave Tobias visited the applicant's property and surrounding neighborhood to observe site conditions, property characteristics, setting, surrounding environment, and the character of the surrounding neighborhood. Mr. Fox was present to describe the subject proposal, and no business or deliberations were conducted during the site visit. Findings of fact and conclusions of law. Balancing test. In our review of the variance sought, we have considered the benefit to the applicant if the area variance is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. We determined that the variance requested should be granted because there is minimal detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community in granting this variance. Consideration of 5 factors in the balancing test. In our determination, we have considered the 5 factors required by section 125-124C1 of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law as follows. A, if the proposed marginal area variance of 147 square feet is granted, will it cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or cause a detriment to nearby properties? We find the answer to this question is no, given that the footprint of the subject structure will be slightly reduced rather than enlarged, that the second-story renovation or addition is not expected to create visual or other impacts to neighbors who might view the property, and that the improvement will not be visible from the public road. Can the benefit Next question, can the benefit sought by the applicant be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance? We find the answer to this question is yes, since the improvement could theoretically be built without the 147 square feet, which requires the variance. Next question, is the requested area variance substantial? We find the answer to this question is no, given the relatively small area beyond what section 125-27A4 of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law allows. Next question, will the proposed variance have an adverse impact on physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district? We find the answer to this question is no, given the limited extent of the additional square footage that requires the variance. This is further supported by the CAD and WAC findings, which stated that no adverse effect or impacts to environmental conditions are expected. Last question, is the alleged difficulty self-created? We find the answer to this question is yes, given that the property was likely acquired under existing zoning and ordinances. The applicant should have been aware of local restrictions on expansion or improvements to the site. Next section, minimal variance requested. In addition to our review of the 5 factors and balancing tests, we must also determine if this requested variance is the minimum variance necessary to and adequate to accomplish what is requested by the applicant. We find the answer to this question is yes, given the information described above. Now, therefore, be it resolved based on all of the facts described above and upon the reasoning described above, as follows. The ZBA hereby grants the area variance requested by the applicant, finding that the benefit to the applicant outweighs the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. Number 2, granting of this variance shall be expressly contingent upon the applicant's full payment to the Town of Rhinebeck of any and all fees and escrow deposits due in connection with this application, in full compliance with Article 14, fee reimbursement of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law. This variance shall not be deemed granted until all such fees are paid in full by the applicant. Next section, granting of this variance does not absolve the applicant from having to secure any other required permits and/or approvals. The proposed structure must be constructed in conformity with the application and plan submitted. Next section, the area variance shall be null and void unless the proposed construction is commenced within 1 year of this resolution. Motion to approve is provided by me, seconded by?
Is there any discussion from the board?
Yeah, first we need discussion.
Sorry, thank you.
That's okay.
There's a reference under the public hearings for the advertised and held at Town Hall. Do we want to make a general change to Zoom?
Well, I think we typically have now, we leave that in, but we also make reference to the fact that it's a virtual meeting.
Well, actually, I would actually take out the reference to Town Hall. That is a good catch, Tim. I would say a public hearing on this bill was duly advertised and held virtually via video conferencing pursuant to Executive Law 202.1.
Do you want to issue an updated
Yeah.
template?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea. And,
Sorry,
and
I'm making the change here. New York State Executive Law number what?
202.1.
202.1. Okay, so it now reads, the public hearing on this appeal was duly advertised and held virtually under
Via video conferencing.
Via video conferencing pursuant to
New York State
Executive Law number 202.1 on July 15, 2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. That was good.
Yep. Thank
And
you.
I'll provide some language for the board to use for the indefinite future while we are Zooming.
I think it's the right result. And I did the site inspection, and actually I've been out there a couple of times because they've come to us a couple of times for variances, but I think it's only going to enhance the property, and it looked like a very nice project. So I'm all for it. Anybody else have any comments, concerns? Catherine?
Yeah, it will definitely improve the property. It's a great addition to the buildings that are there, that have been built, much better than what's there now.
Yeah, and it'll match the buildings that are there now versus just kind of being not in the greatest of repair. It needs some loving care.
And it's really not an enlarged footprint. So
It really is not. Yeah. All right. Any other discussion?
Just a quick numbering. So under the therefore area, the last one, that the area variance is null and void after a year, should be changed to section 4.
Yes, thank you.
But otherwise, I think it was a good decision. I think it was a good balancing test. So thank you, Dave.
Certainly.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So, would you like to make a motion?
Indeed. I make the motion that we pass resolution relating to ZBA case number 997 as just read and amended.
I will second that. And then, Chris, would you do the honors?
Yes, Scott Bergen,
Yes.
Catherine Clark,
yes.
Tim McAnapoli,
Yes.
Dave Tobias,
Yes.
and Timothy Allenbrook.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
And the last one is mine, and it's the done matter. And I apologize, everybody, for being so tardy and getting you the resolutions a little late. But anyway, hopefully everybody has a hard copy. No? It should have been sent out.
I'll bring it up on the screen.
Okay. The resolution, this is a resolution of the Town of Rhinebeck Zoning Board of Appeals in the matter of the area variance application of Griffin Dunn, ZBA case number 999. On the background, the applicant is Griffin Dunn, here and after the applicant. The applicant is represented by Michelle Harrington of Chestnut Street Design and Construction. The applicant is requesting 2 variances to convert an existing barn to a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom guest house. The area to be converted is 2,334 square feet. The subject application and request for variances results from the determination letter from the Town of Rhinebeck Zoning Enforcement Officer dated April 30th, 2020. The letter confirmed that there is a maximum 900 square feet of habitable space allowed for an accessory dwelling in the RC5 zoning district, and accordingly, a variance of 1,434 square feet is required. In addition, the existing barn is closer to the fronting street than the principal dwelling, necessitating a second variance. The property involved. The appeal involves property located at 16 Bolenbecker Road, Rhinebeck, New York, which bears the tax parcel number blah, blah, blah. The applicant's property is approximately 71.033 acres and located in the RC5 zoning district. Representation, the owner is represented by Michelle Harrington of Chestnut Street Design and Construction Incorporated. Number of area variances required. By letter dated April 30th, 2020, the ZEO advised the applicant that the maximum amount of habitable square footage allowed is 900 square feet for an accessory dwelling in the RC5 zoning district. Accordingly, the applicant needs an area variance of 1,434 square feet. This variance is from section 125-68E4. In addition, the existing structure is closer to the fronting street than the principal building on the lot. Accordingly, a variance is required from section 125-27A3. Timeliness of the appeal. On October 23rd, 2019, the ZEO initially determined that an area variance of 1,075 square feet was required, as well as a variance for having an accessory structure in front of the principal dwelling. The applicant filed an appeal with the board on May 1st, 2020, and has paid the requisite fee. The appeal was filed within 60 days of the date of the CEO's revised decision, and thus the application is timely as required under section 125-125B of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law. Acceptance of the application. The applicant provided the ZBA with a presentation on May 20th, 2020, on which the ZBA deemed the application complete, subject to the applicant providing floor plans. The floor plans were provided prior to the public hearing on July 2nd, 2020. That's got to be, let's see, floor plans were provided prior to the public hearing on, was it July 15th? I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
My mistake. Okay, seeker and planning board approval. After accepting this application, the ZBA determined that there was a simultaneous application with the planning board involving site plan and special use permit, and determined that it should follow the planning board's State Environmental Quality Review Act secret determination. On June 15th, 2020, the planning board by resolution determined that the proposed action was a type 2 action under secret for which coordinated environmental quality review is precluded. Paragraph 9, referrals and responses. The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, as required by section 125-125E of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law, this application was referred to the Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board on May 20th, 2020. The planning board on July 20th, 2020 determined that the requested variances raised no significant planning or environmental concerns. It was determined that no referral was required to the Dutchess County Planning Board, the Waterfront Advisory Committee, or the Conservation Advisory Board. Site visit, and I'm not sure I had this exactly right. On July, I know the date, on July 16, 2020, ZBA members, Catherine Clark, Tim Allenbrook, and Tim Econopoli. I blew it. Tim, were you there? You weren't there? I wasn't sure if you were there.
Tim.
I was there, I think.
Econopoli.
I was not there.
Okay, so Tim Econopoli was not there, but Tim Allenbrook was there, and Catherine Clark was there.
Yes.
So I'll strike the reference on Timmy. Okay, and Scott Bergen visited the subject property and surrounding neighborhood to observe firsthand conditions, property characteristics, setting, surrounding environment, and the character of the surrounding neighborhood. The purpose of this visit was to observe the property and the surrounding area, to inform the board members to support the decision made herein. The site visit was conducted solely to gather information, and no business or deliberations were conducted during the site visit. Public hearing. A public hearing on this appeal was duly advertised and held at the town hall on July 15, 2020. We may want to revise that pursuant to our first resolution. But what I added, or what was added, was because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the public hearing was held virtually pursuant to New York State Executive Order 202.1, which suspended certain provisions of the Open Meetings Law to allow a municipal board to convene meetings during the current pandemic via video conferencing. The public was afforded the opportunity to view and participate during this public hearing. No one from the public was present with comments for the application. The public hearing was closed on July 15th, 2020. So, Kim, do you want to be consistent with Dave's resolution, and we'll fiddle around with that section?
You know what? I think because you have it in there at the next sentence, I would just say that the first sentence, a public hearing on this appeal duly advertised and held on July 15th, and then it goes right into the
Right, then I go into the pandemic thing.
So it even if it's, the principle is there, and that's
Okay.
all that matters. So.
Okay. Okay. Findings of fact, that's okay. Findings of fact and conclusions of law. Balancing test. In our review of the variances sought, we have considered the benefit to the applicant if the area variances are granted, as weighed against detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. We have determined that the variances requested should be granted because there is no detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by the granting of the variances. Okay, consideration of 5 factors and balancing test. In our review of the variances sought and the consideration of the balancing between the benefit to the applicant as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community, we have considered the 5 factors required by section 125-124C1 of the Town of Rhinebeck zoning law as follows. A, if the variances are granted, will it cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or cause a detriment to nearby properties? We find that the answer to the question is no. There will be little change to the structure externally. The only proposed work would be siding a portion of the barn and a new gravel path from the driveway to the main entry door. In addition, the application calls for improvements to the interior of the existing structure. The proposal will only enhance the condition of the existing barn and will improve its appearance. B, can the benefit sought by the applicant be achieved by some other method feasible to the applicant to pursue other than area variances? We find that the answer to the question is no. The building itself is currently on the property and has been on the property for many years. The applicant is not expanding the structure itself, but simply improving the existing structure. The majority of the work to be done on the structure will be done inside of the structure. C, are the requested area variances substantial? We find that the answer to the question is no. Again, this is an existing structure. The portion of the barn that the applicant wishes to improve is 2,334 square feet. The footprint of the structure will not be changed. Since the square footage of the building is not changing, and by the way, I'm missing a G on changing, the typo. The variances are not substantial. D, will the proposed variances have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district? We find the answer to the question is no. The proposal will only enhance and improve the property as well as the surrounding neighborhood. And E, is the alleged difficulty self-created? We find the answer to the question is no. Again, the existing structure will not be expanded. It has existed for many years on the property and predates the most recent code of 2009. 14, minimal variance requested. In addition to our review of the 5 factors and the balancing test, we must also determine if the requested variances are considered the minimum necessary and adequate to accomplish what is requested by the applicant, while also preserving and protecting the character of the neighborhood and the health, safety, and welfare of the community. We find that the answer to the question is yes. The building has existed on the site for many years. It has been and continues to be non-conforming. The application will not make the building less compliant with the existing zoning law. We find that the application is reasonable, in fact, a positive improvement to the property itself and the neighborhood. A result of the balancing test based upon our analysis of the 5 factors we discussed above and the consideration of having the minimal variance requested, we find that the balancing test favors granting of the area variance sought. Now, therefore, be it resolved based on all of the facts described above and upon the reasoning described above as follows. Section 1, the ZBA grants the variances from zoning law section 125-65E4, which limits the square footage of an accessory structure to 900 square feet of habitable space, finding that the benefit to the applicant outweighs any detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such a grant. The variance of 1,434 square feet is supported by the balancing of the 5 factors as discussed above. In addition, the ZBA grants the variance from zoning law section 125-27A3, prohibiting the accessory structure from being closer to the fronting street than the principal building on the lot. The existing barn has been on the site for many years, and the application does not call for it to be moved any closer to the fronting street. Section 2, the granting of the variances are expressly contingent upon the applicant's full payment to the town of Rhinebeck of any and all fees and escrow deposits due in connection with the application in full compliance with Article 14 fee reimbursement of the town of Rhinebeck zoning law. These variances shall not be deemed granted until all such fees are paid in full by the applicant. Section 3, the granting of the variances does not absolve the applicant from having to secure any other required permits and/or approvals. And finally, section 4, the variances shall be null and void unless construction pursuant to the plan is begun within 1 year of this resolution. The construction must be in conformity with the site plan, the renderings, the application, and all other information forwarded to the ZBA. Do I have any comments, questions, concerns?
One tiny comment
Okay.
on it. It's another typo on section B, the last word of the second paragraph. Structure needs an R, or at least in the copy of the document I had.
Okay.
Can the benefit sought by the applicant be achieved by some method? This next paragraph down, the last word.
Structure.
I might have had an earlier version. But...
Yeah, I think mine, well, I don't see the typo, so maybe I gave you.
Okay. Yeah, I may have picked up an earlier version, but other than that, I didn't see anything else.
Okay.
I actually, Scott, under the timeliness, number 6. So could we just add a second sentence just for clarity purposes about the revised ZEO determination? So,
The date?
Yeah, so I would just have it read right after the first one, the first sentence, insert a sentence that says, this determination was later revised on April 30th to state the requested or the required area variance is 1,434 square feet.
Okay.
And that just provides a little bit more
Right.
continuity.
Anyone else?
And just this is just a spelling or a spacing rather. Number 5, the third line down should says square feet for an accessory dwelling, and there should be a space between in the RC5.
Oh yeah, I see it. Yep. Okay. Anything else? Chris, did you get the changes?
For the most part.
Okay.
I can send you that sentence, Chris, if you want, just to. But it's just the general nature of it.
Yeah.
I just want to.
I mean, we make reference to it in paragraph 1, but I think it's well taken that we tie it together in paragraph 6. Okay. Well, if I don't hear any other questions, concerns, comments, then I will make a motion that we approve the resolution as read. Do I have a second?
And edit it.
And edited.
Second.
Okay. And Chris, would you like to do the honors?
Yes, Timothy Allenbrook,
Yep, I approve.
Scott Bergen,
Yes.
Dave Tobias,
Yes.
Catherine Clark,
Yes.
and Tim Mecanopoli.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for this evening. Anything else, Kim?
No, I don't think so. John and I will work on the legal briefing for you for the Patel application, and we'll get it to you prior to the meeting.
Okay, and then what we'll do at the next meeting is we'll have to figure out, I mean, we want to have a discussion. Is that something that we do in like an executive session kind of thing, or?
Well, why don't you look at our briefing and we'll go from there. If you have any legal questions from that, you know, we can discuss it, figure out the best way to handle it.
In public, it's easy, you know, just to go into executive session. In the Zoom thing, maybe it's a little bit more.
Well, it's not. Well, I mean, we can certainly still have that as an option, but why don't we'll get you a legal brief for you to read, and why don't we just see if you guys have any further questions that stem from that, and then we'll figure out the best approach to answering those questions for you.
Okay. I make a motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. I assume everyone is in favor. No roll call needed.
Correct.
Let's just do one for the heck of it.
Oh, you're gonna, Tim Econopoli. I got it right again.
There you go. End on a positive note.
See, you did that just to mess with me. And Catherine and Tim and Dave and me. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes,
We're
yes.
adjourned. All right, we'll see you guys in a month. Be safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Well.
Bye.